my name is Daniel Walkwitz, and this presentation is titled An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding on Biofield Therapies. The title is taken from David Hume's famous work, An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding, Chapter 10, on Miracles, where he eloquently states, "A wise man, therefore, proportions his belief to the evidence." Full references are provided by slide at the end of the presentation. I had an interesting experience recently in my mind-body medicine class, which drove me to research the scientific basis of it. The class itself is intended to introduce students, mostly pre-med students, to complementary therapies such as meditation, yoga, guided imagery, etc. It allows them to experience these for themselves and is supposed to provide an evidence base for the various modalities introduced. The experience that prompted this presentation was intended to be an experience of dance therapy. However, the particular individual conducting the dance therapy happened to be a self-proclaimed psychic who had supposedly tapped into our class energy the previous evening in order to create a music playlist specific for us. She also claimed to be able to manipulate energy fields around others, a service for which she charged $100 an hour. I was understandably pretty skeptical, but was bothered by the fact that I was the most skeptical person in a room full of pre-med students, and thus decided to undertake a lengthy exploration of any supposed scientific basis of this energy healing. Energy healing is defined as, quote, "a complex intervention with the purpose of enhancing wholeness within the client," end quote. A distinction is made between curing, or the elimination of symptoms, and healing, or the transcendence of suffering. There are many versions of energy healing, such as therapeutic touch and Reiki, which involve the healer either touching or being near but not actually touching the patient in order to correct disturbances in their energy field or something of the sort. There are also many different names for the thing that is purportedly being aligned, including, but not limited to, energy, energy field, biofield, chi, and vital life force. While some authors make clear that these types of therapies are not an alternative to conventional medicine and should only be practiced alongside standard medical techniques, many of the claims made in more publicly available media do not, which is clearly problematic if patients believe that they will be totally fine, maybe even better, if they forego standard allopathic medicine in favor of solely practicing complementary therapies. Spoiler alert, if they have a serious condition, they won't be fine. For anyone who has heard of Reiki, you might be asking, but haven't studies shown that Reiki does have real effects? The answer is yes, they have, although depending on the study, Reiki may or may not be more effective than sham Reiki. The largest study I could find showed no significant differences between Reiki and sham Reiki, but there are at least 4 smaller studies which disagree. Note, however, that only one of the 4 which reached significance in my research had more than 20 subjects, and 2 of the 4 were performed on rats. Studied effects include comfort and well-being, physical relaxation, resting heart rate, and blood pressure. While one explanation of the above effects could be that Reiki actually taps into some hitherto scientifically unknown life force in order to improve healing by manipulating human energy fields, there are other less implausible explanations that could account for these findings as well, and these should be considered. First, all of the above-mentioned studies in support of Reiki over sham Reiki were published in journals with a relatively low ranking, H-index, and impact factor, which, although still peer-reviewed, could indicate poor methodological quality and/or lower scientific acceptance. Second, all the above studies were of smaller sample size, meaning lower statistical power and lower likelihood of reproducible results with a large enough sample size. However, there is yet another possible explanation which does not require acceptance of implausible life forces or energy fields for a real effect to be observed. Let's talk about placebos. Placebos are drugs or treatments which patients expect will have a positive effect on their symptoms, but which do not have any pharmacological properties that would cause this effect. Nevertheless, placebos are recognized as powerful medical tools and have been shown to have real effects, both psychological and physiological. These include reduction of pain, decreased depression and anxiety, increased arousal to erotic stimuli, feelings of alertness, tension, relaxation, and drowsiness, skin responses, motor responses, pulse rate, blood pressure, and more. Note that these do not include placebo contraception effects. One may notice that many of the effects induced by placebo, both psychological and physiological, such as effects on relaxation, anxiety, or blood pressure, are the same effects induced by alleged energy healing techniques, as well as, in some cases, depending on the study, by mock energy healing techniques. This raises the possibility that the effects are in fact caused by a related but unquantified third variable, which I propose is the expectation of the healers, sham healers, patients, and researchers as to the efficacy of the modality being used. Just as doctors expect their well-studied and peer-reviewed treatments to resolve patient issues and convey this to patients in ways including but certainly not limited to verbal communication, for example body language, facial expressions, or gestures, so too do healers expect their treatments to improve patient well-being and almost certainly convey this to patients in a similar manner. Patients who trust their doctor or healer therefore expect these treatments to improve their condition or general well-being in some way and thus have a certain expectation about the treatment before it even begins. As discussed previously, expectation, disguised as a placebo treatment, can have very real, quantifiable physiological effects. Sham healers in studies attempting to compare placebo Reiki with real Reiki likely do not have a high level of confidence that their treatment will produce any effects and convey this to patients unintentionally through body language, facial expressions, and gestures. Patients pick up on these signals even if they may not do so consciously, and so have lower expectations of efficacy than those receiving the real treatment. This problem is further compounded in studies where the researchers are not blinded and thus convey their expectations of efficacy as well, although probably not consciously or intentionally. This could very easily explain results which purportedly show Reiki to be more effective than sham Reiki without requiring any unwarranted assumptions concerning human energy fields. Alright, let's take a look at a case study. Dr. Valerie V. Hunt published 5 real scientific articles in the 60s and 70s, according to PubMed. She also contributed to an article which has been cited in the peer-reviewed journal Global Advances in Health and Medicine as evidence of a biofield. However, the article in question was not published in any peer-reviewed journal and was also sponsored by the Rolf Institute, an organization whose mission includes, quote, to promote research to advance Rolfing structural integration, end quote. Rolfing is, according to their website, quote, a form of bodywork that reorganizes the connective tissues, called fascia, that permeate the entire body, end quote. In other words, it's some sort of fancy massage therapy which they want to prove works. Their site also has an interesting disclaimer, which states in part, quote, the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute further disclaims any liability whatsoever for any information which is or may become a part of this website in terms of their correctness, accuracy, reliability, or otherwise. So basically it's not good for anything. Despite all of this, her non-published article was still cited as evidence, which seems pretty deceptive to me. Dr. Valerie Hunt also created a fascinating device called an aura meter, which is apparently priced between $10,000 and $13,000. This device, which is claimed to require, quote, a level of expertise needed to use possessed only by Dr. Hunt herself, end quote, will require raising $2 million in order to develop it as something, quote, that can be used in doctors' offices and laboratories throughout the world, end quote. This device must come with some outstanding benefits in order to warrant such a hefty price tag. Well, let's see. Apparently, this device, developed with the assistance of scientists who developed telemetry devices for NASA, no source provided, can measure frequencies from 0 up to 250,000 Hertz from a, quote, dynamic energy field surrounding the human body, end quote. Everyone has a unique energy pattern, according to this article, which can be determined by the aura meter to inform whether they will have a deficient or hyperactive disturbance in their field. Matching the individual energy pattern to the signature field of healers determines which healer is the perfect fit for a given individual. As, quote, physiological symptoms appear because of the field disturbance, end quote, the healer can then help the individual correct disturbances in their field, which will cause the physiological symptoms to disappear and the disease condition to not return in the future. An example given is that cancer people need healers with some red, but not too much, otherwise they will refuse to transact with the healer and no healing can take place. This is also supposed to be superior to allopathic medicine, as the person cannot be harmed because they, quote, simply will not transact with harmful energies, end quote. Our current lifehood, as she calls it, which seems to be something like past or present lives, is also not the source of our really big problems, and the aura meter can help in going to the correct lifehood and making the emotional constellation in the energy surrounding that situation coherent. I guess I would pay $13,000 for a device that would fix all my physiological and psychological problems. After all, think how much I could save on insurance over my lifetime. This all goes to show that skepticism of claims, even those made by scientists, is critical for informing factual beliefs and healing methods. In conclusion, energy healing via non-contact therapy involving some sort of biofield, chi, vital life force, or whatever else one prefers to call it, sounds awesome. I would love to have such a theoretically inexpensive, easily accessible, painless method of fixing all my ailments, and I'm sure most people would. This probably accounts for the fact that so many people believe in this kind of stuff. That is, because they want to. For better or worse, however, I am unable to choose beliefs simply because I find them convenient or comforting. I require actual evidence. The best evidence that can be provided for a biofield is hypothetical, and positive results by alleged healers can be explained by expectation or placebo effects. This explanation is considerably simpler and doesn't posit scientifically implausible claims about reality. Therefore, I will proportion my beliefs accordingly. Ideally, reputable universities and peer review processes will do the same. Depressingly, however, there are numerous examples, both here and in other works, where this is not the case. Therefore, readers would do well to investigate implausible claims thoroughly for themselves, which unfortunately must include digging through references of ostensibly peer-reviewed literature on the subject, as peer review is clearly not all it is cracked up to be. I quite encourage checking my sources as well, because I am also human and biased and have been known to make mistakes. Thank you.